Welcome to the party. I'm Sam Ekstrom of Locked On Sports Minnesota. Was that a top 10 Vikings gut punch regular season loss of all time? Might have been.
Hey, this is Arif Hasan from the Wide Lev Substack. I am prepared for the Swifty football future.
Luke Inman at Luke_Spinman. Are we sure Keenan Allen wasn't playing on rookie mode yesterday and everyone else was playing on all Madden? Someone check his settings, please.
And I'm Luke Braun of Locked On Vikings, and the Swifty football revolution already won me a parlay. Let's go.
We do have a parlay winner. Something positive to talk about on today's Minnesota football party.
Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast. It's endless Minnesota Vikings talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. It's time for the Minnesota football party. It's your guys hanging out.
Welcome in a new week on the Minnesota football party on Locked On Sports Minnesota. The Vikings are 0-3. We are going to wallow in that today with the four of us. Myself, Sam Ekstrom, Luke Inman, Arif Hasan, and Luke Braun. The Minnesota Vikings lose a brutal kick in the midsection, take your breath away, rip your heart out, 28-24 to the Los Angeles Chargers. So we're obviously going to dive very deeply on that. I'm even going to put out my top 10 gut punch losses of the last 25 years and see if this one makes the list. Why aren't the blitzes working? Why are they carving the Vikings apart when they bring pressure? What were the dumbest plays to happen yesterday? All of that on today's Minnesota football party, which is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Make every moment more. Go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. And for more of this type of content, please subscribe on YouTube on Locked On Sports Minnesota. We would appreciate that. You get not only this show Mondays and Thursdays, you get the Ron Johnson Show and all the postcasts with Mr. Postcast himself, Luke Inman, hosting those programs. Yesterday's postcast was unbelievably lively. If you want to go back and watch that on the Locked On Sports Minnesota YouTube channel. Also subscribe to the audio stuff. This show is on Locked On Vikings feed, other content, including the postcasts on the Locked On Sports Minnesota audio feed, which you can find wherever you get your podcasts. Oh, that was brutal yesterday. That really hurt. That was a visceral loss, 28-24. Luke Inman, give me the first word. What was the dumbest part of that loss? That really stunk.
Yeah, that one hurts, man. I know we're going to get into like the most frustrating plays and everything else. Yeah. Obviously, the first two that you circle, though, Evans drops an interception. I think that trumps everything, turning into a touchdown. Like, that's not like luck regression at this point. This is like straight. It's not like we went from, oh, we had so much luck last year to like, now it's just like neutral. We're not getting good luck. That's such bad luck at that point, too. And I also, the red zone opportunities really stick out. When I just wake up this morning, I kind of reflect, the dust settles, I look back, 1st and goal at the 3, nothing. 1st and goal at the 3 again, 3 points. 1st and goal at the 6, nothing. You end up with 3 points out of those 3 opportunities. That was obviously frustrating. I know we'll pick apart the last play of the game, that sequence as well, but just, it wasn't one thing, Sam, man. I mean, your offense puts up what, like 470, 480 yards. The turnover regression started to happen a little bit. It wasn't just one thing, though, and I think that's what's frustrating. It's hard to put your finger on just one thing. If you fix this, things will look a lot different. Clearly, though, we know this isn't as bad of a football team as the record suggests.
Yeah, same story after week 3 as it was after week 2. Don't turn it over and block a little better, and you're a winning football team. But Arif, the Vikings are not. They are 0-3. Tell us how stupid it was for you.
I mean, very stupid. It's really annoying because it's like the Vikings are such a difficult team to cover because for every football fan, this is not unique to the Vikings fan base, but for every football fan, results, they don't just speak louder than process, they shout, right? They yell at you more than you can in any discussion of process. So for example, on that Evans touchdown / almost pick, right? There were 3 plays that occurred in the end zone or near the end zone where a defensive back gets their hands on the ball and tips it. 2 out of those 3 plays ended up in the hands of Chargers. One of them ended up in the ground. The other one, of course, was the interception off of TJ Hawkinson's hands. And the one that ended up in the ground was the near touchdown to Jordan Addison, right? All of them had a defensive player at some point touch that ball and tip it up into the air. Now, the Hawkinson one, that was the second of 3 touches, but you understand, right? Like that, they resulted in only negative Vikings plays, despite the fact that as soon as the ball gets tipped up in the air, it is technically, I think, a little bit more of a defensive play than an offensive play, but still, it is anybody's ball, but it happened to only be the Chargers' ball, right? Like, it's just stuff like that that gets very frustrating. And it's not as if the Vikings were screwed by the officials, right? They got help by some weird offensive pass interference penalties. They got help by the forward progress ruling on the Madison fumble. I'm not saying they didn't get hurt by the officials at some points. They certainly did. But it's not as if you could say, hey, if the officials didn't
first downs via penalty, and the Chargers had 0.
Yeah. I can't complete. Yeah.
So it's just annoying because like everything that occurred happened as a result of the Vikings play, which is not the same as it not being a luck-based outcome, because essentially it is, right? But that doesn't mean you can't be like, you got to catch that ball. Right, like that's
yeah.
How about second quarter, 4th and goal at the 1? Herbert goes play action fake, got a little time to sit back, pump fake. You got Jordan Hicks plastered all over Parham, the tight end.
Just like
throws it anyways because
it's Bullard's arm. Someone's arm was up too. That almost knocked that down at the line.
Right, straight up 50-50 ball, but it's like, well, it's 4th down. I got to throw it. Why not just throw it anyways?
Forever back there.
Right over Jordan Hicks, and you saw Donald Parham on the sideline. He was just like, I don't know. I just put my hands up and there was a ball there.
Yeah.
Right? Right. He's just like, how did that happen?
I blacked out, dude. What happened?
Honestly, it's the same type of catch Hawkinson needed to make at the end. It's the same. Yeah. It's the same play. And it was a great throw by. After watching it back, I think it was a great throw by Cousins.
Phenomenal throw by. It was honestly one of his best throws because he was kind of off all game. That throw that resulted in an interception was one of his best throws of the game. It was phenomenal.
But he threw it a little too hard, though, guys. Come on. Are we 1,000% positive? Just the way his momentum was bringing him, it looked like it was going to be close if he was in or not. And I was worried that if he would have caught that, just like the Josh Oliver touchdown catch there, where it was like, okay, was he in for sure? Are you guys 100,000% sure that he would have been in? And instead, maybe some people were worried that like, if it was that close, then the clock would have drained, and then the clock thing would have been an even bigger issue, I think, after the game.
The officials would have stopped it to measure. Yeah, hard to care.
I think
he
didn't though. So,
right. But yeah, I think it would have been fine. I think he would have been in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think at that point the officials do like stop the clock and attempt to measure because it's in the final 2 minutes, so the officials can just.
And they actually would then run 10 seconds, wouldn't they? Because we didn't have any timeouts.
Right.
Oh yeah.
That's how the Lions lost the game.
And that's what I'm saying.
That's how we would lose the game. That would have been
even more.
That might be what the Vikings were
sure that he
attempting
was
to
in.
do.
That's why I bring it up. I wasn't.
I think he was, but that would have been a much funnier way to lose. Yeah, for sure.
Here's the one that gets me. First quarter, TJ Hawkinson catches a 3rd down pass over the middle of the field, just gets the ball taken away from him by a defensive back. Can this stop happening? Holy crap!
That was crazy.
First Osborne,
and
Hawkinson.
I don't want to give Osborne too much slack on that because it's still like a bad play. That thing hit you in the numbers, and a D-back ended up with it.
On the arm, but yeah.
But well inside the frame, right? Like that was you catch that. But like Hawkinson had a minute. Like he had time to like actually tuck it, get both arms on it, and you still got that thing taken away from you. Like when you get the ball taken from you, like I remember when Cam Dantzler did that to Amir Smith-Marset last year, you got to just like sit down for a quarter. Like that's not okay to have a defender do that to you, a D-back do that to you when you're a tight end. Come on, dude. It's like getting trucked by the quarterback. Like, dog.
Yeah, it's not as if you got punched out as you were going down. He just like ripped it out. Like
he just took it. Like, man,
that Gilman
muscled that bad. Like
Gilman was so physical in that game.
That's
to
true,
use a super old and tired cliche. In all 3 of the Vikings games, the other team has just wanted the ball more. They just want it more, and the Vikings are on 3. Have some intensity. I don't know.
Are you guys like audible yell, like when the ball is floating through the air about to be intercepted? Are you guys like audibly yelling at the TV in those moments, or are you more like you're yelling inside your soul?
I mean,
Do you let it out?
regardless of who the quarterback is, if it's obvious to me from the go that is a very interceptable pass, I will be yelling. Like when Jalen Hurts threw the ball to was it Theo Jackson who picked it up?
Yeah.
I was like, that's getting picked. What are you doing? And then he picks it. And I'm like,
You had
oh my
enough time
God.
to say that whole line as it was in the air. That's impressive.
Right.
It hung that long,
Right.
Yeah,
When the ball's on the ground, I picked up a habit from my dad, who I think still has it from his playing days, where he'll go, ball.
Ball. See ball, get ball.
Because that's what you got to yell it, right? When the ball's on the ground, you go, ball. So everybody knows, ball. Yeah. So I think I've picked that up because whenever
Yeah,
I see it on the ground, which has happened a lot, I just instinctively, it just like leaps out of me. Like, ball. I'm like sitting alone.
What was the fumble recovery percentage in this one? Like 1 out of 5?
Yeah, so this one's a little bit weird because two of them, it's not as if the Vikings had any reasonable chance to recover, right? One was the strip sack of Justin Herbert, where the only player that was reasonably close was Hunter himself, and he was kind of getting carried away. And the other one was a ball that just basically just went out of bounds. And so it's like, why would we even count that as a fumble? So yeah, it was a 20% fumble recovery rate from the Vikings. Like, yeah. At the same time, it's not as if they got unlucky because, again, Alexander Mattison should have been called as someone who had fumbled it. So, in reality, it was 1 of 4, essentially, right? And that sucks still, again. Yeah.
And those Madison fumbles that didn't count, it doesn't make me feel any better.
Yeah, I don't
Alexander
feel great
Mattison.
about it. Right.
Yeah. I mean, I still think that's you got to start putting that on the resume under Madison's weaknesses. Does not hang on to the ball.
As we've learned, we
there were
can't
people in
bank
my
on like
mentions
the
arguing about
officiating
this.
in the booth to like bail us out every time. Not that it was a bailout, but you know what I mean. Like,
right? Yeah. Well, someone was like, Madison hasn't fumbled this game, and I was like, that is not the point.
Right?
Are you kidding me, man?
Right.
Like, if the discussion is like, are we worried about his ball security? The answer is yes. The fact that I think it was 2, right? Because the other one he was definitely down, right? But the ball squirts out, and you're just like, come on. We can't even let it be ambiguous, right? Like, don't let the refs, make the decision for you, right?
Exactly.
So yeah, he's down.
I had one last week that he got away with because he was technically down, but it was like bang bang too.
Right. Like,
yeah.
dude.
And it's like, dude, this guy this year might fumble more than Dalvin Cook does, right? And Cook is not, he does not hold on to the ball,
Wow,
right?
That's crazy to think about. Wow.
And-
So is KOC just on Amazon this morning, just looking up new contraptions to hold on to the ball this week in practice, or what? Like,
they gave Tom Pelissero the little poker thing to do a
Right.
bit on the sideline and then fumbled on like the second drive. It's
or
like,
is he going through that stress and frustration of like, dude, where's the shipping package and label? I got to send this back, but like nobody ever
right?
sends their packages back to Amazon. It's like, well, just lost my money on that one.
Let's talk about the final sequence. Reading all the quotes yesterday, I believe them when they say that there was trouble with the communication. Cousins looked like he was in consternation. I also believe them when they say that the correct play was run and executed correctly. I think it took way too much time. Like, that's my gripe with it, is that they probably should have started. Like, I'm okay if you're letting the clock run down. By all means, leave nothing on the clock. But that was a first down play. You have 4 cracks from the 6. They did not leave enough time for 4 possible cracks.
Well, so
I would have.
So they said that they had determined, right? They said that they had determined that the amount of time it takes for them to spike the ball and the amount of time it takes for them to run that play, typically, the difference is like a couple of seconds. And he wanted to, quote, steal a play, which I'm fine with. In fact, most of the time, I think teams spike the ball way too much. Right? Because those downs are important even late in games. Time and downs both matter, right? And so he is attempting to get across, hey, we can steal a play. It'll cost us a couple of seconds. But the thing is, like, that's like worth it at like 38 seconds left, right? I think is kind of where we're at, right? That's worth it, right? But the problem is they run a play at 12 seconds, right? And so when he says it actually would have been better if the headset had gone out completely, like, that's a good point, right? Because you kick into your process for what happens when there's no communication at all. Like, probably Cousins doesn't try to get the play and he just runs whatever, right? He probably doesn't clock it still. He probably just runs whatever. And it might take, again, another second or two to communicate that to everybody. But they have a process for communicating plays in the 2-minute without having to huddle. That is a normal, every team does that sort of thing. Also, Vikings fans should shut up. That's part of it. They should just shut up when the offense is on the field. I'm sorry it's a 2-minute drill.
Oh, I thought you meant generally.
Yeah, also. But like when the offense is like, Peyton Manning does not have this problem, right? Like he had trained the Colts and Denver's audience to, during a 2-minute drill, shut up. And like that's, some of that is just, I mean, it's like 95, 98% on the Vikings, but like shut up. Right? like that's like a little bit a part of like what happens when a team tells the stadium like what to do when the offense is on the field. So he like it sounded like there was a little bit of trouble with the headset itself. It sounded like there was a lot of problems navigating that plus the crowd noise. And Cousins, I don't think it was smart of him to actually say this, but when Cousins said, I've got the ability to do whatever I want, I just don't want to do it that often, right? He's like, I can do whatever I want, right? That's what happened. The quarterback sneak against the Buffalo Bills, right? Which is a 4th and 1 that failed. I don't want to make it a habit of it. And it's like, make a habit of it. Own the offense. Are you kidding me, man?
Yeah.
Like,
you've been in the league for what, a decade?
Yeah.
Like veteran leader? Like, no excuse. Yeah. You got to give yourself at least 3 chances there.
You made a bad call, but it's like, that was 20 seconds of time when you had 38 seconds.
Yeah. I think there's something larger that kind of applies to the Vikings in a lot of facets with this, which is, I don't know if you necessarily made the wrong decision, right? Oh, we have them on our heels. Let's see if we can get up to the line quick and like go get it.
Oh yeah, that was like one of the other reasons.
Like,
yeah.
Okay, sure. I get it. And maybe that's worth a couple seconds to you. Look, I get it. You want to blitz half the time. It's who you are. It's what Brian Flores does. Okay, get better at it. Get better at doing the no huddle. Get better at executing your longer plays. Get better at timing out your drop back passes so that Cousins isn't holding the ball so long he gets hit every play. Get better at it then. Get better at blitzing so that you can actually get pressure. Like, I don't know. I feel like that isn't as useful. Like, it's not as like some secret key to fixing the Vikings that ever like get better. I know that's probably not the best advice, but like, I don't think that they necessarily need to overturn decisions that they have been making or change their process in a major way, but they just have to tighten everything up, get to the line and get a freaking play in, And if Cousins is going to,
were hurrying in that moment, right? Like everybody was walking up to the line. Like
I was confused about that.
If Cousins needed to get a play in, all right, get the damn play in, like get things communicated, get to the line quickly and do it. I remember thinking about that. I think it was 2021. It was the Clint Kubiak year because they couldn't get to the line in time and they took like a bunch of delay of game penalties and like a bunch of weird timeouts and stuff. And it's like, this isn't a play calling issue. This is like a huddling issue. The Vikings found a way to be bad at huddling. And it feels like the same thing. Like it's not wrong to blitz a lot necessarily. That's a valid strategy. And you play off man coverage to cover up some of the things. Like, sure, but get good at it then. You got to get pressure. You got 1 sack on it. Come on.
Let's read the Seifert tweet thread because this is astonishing. Like absolutely mind-boggling. And I just got to find it. Here we go. Flores blitzed 82% of Chargers dropbacks, second highest ever since ESPN began tracking 17 years ago. League average is 21%.
It's funny is that the highest also occurred this week. Wink Martindale against the 49ers.
San Fran.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Justin Herbert was 32 of 38 for 301 and 3 against the blitz. Most completions, attempts, and yards versus blitz ever. So that's insane. And that's a huge problem. And it's been a problem now for like the numbers are only going to get more skewed with the top blitz rate and one of the lowest pressure rates. I haven't seen the PFF numbers on total pressures, but there's no way that it's going to be good.
I thought they got pressure. I thought they were fine in getting pressure. Pressure wasn't getting home. and Herbert was doing a
forced
great
the
job
Chargers to
navigating
work quickly, with
Yes.
which the Chargers could do.
And that's like one part of the equation. I totally get that. Like they're going to the quick game. They're hitting Keenan on all these quick passes, you name it. Give some credit to like Justin Herbert is a stud. That offense, Kellen Moore, everybody. That's a really good offense. One of the best in the league. They're getting pressure, but they're not affecting the quarterback. Like out of all those blitzes, how many times did Herbert get hit? 4? 1 sack?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he got hit on like something like 13%. But like the problem is like even when the Vikings got their hands on Herbert, he like wriggled out of it, right? Like so the point of the blitzes and the pressures is to force them into a very confined set of plays that the Vikings are very familiar with, right? And on the screens, the Vikings did a phenomenal job. In the first half, Herbert averaged 2.9 yards per attempt on passes behind the line of scrimmage. That did not get substantially better up to, I think it was 4 yards per attempt by the end of the game. The problem, of course, is that one of them turned into a double pass to Mike Williams, who we just learned, tore his ACL, which is very unfortunate.
Yeah,
but Keenan Allen's, double pass, that's almost entirely on Byron Murphy. That's not a product of blitzing too much, right? Because in that situation, very often, regardless of what play you have called, you're only going to have one guy on Mike Williams in that situation, and that's Byron Murphy. And he just did not. And I thought, honestly, despite the fact that Keenan Allen got like 18 catches for 250 yards or whatever it was, I think Byron Murphy was all right. Like, he wasn't great. He had some pretty big mistakes, but a lot of that was just like good play. Wow. That was
he got beat on the
very
release
hot
a
take.
lot.
Very hot take.
I think he got beat on the release a lot, and it led Keenan Allen to be open a lot. But yeah, you come in, you made things out of phase, you made things contested, you made things hard. But
yeah, like
yeah,
I'm not going to.
Keenan Allen gets a pretty big dub there.
Yeah, I'm not going to say that Murphy secretly had a great game, but I don't think it was as bad as like 18 for 215, suggests, or the 49-yard. If you add in the 49-yard Mike Williams touchdown, which again, that was maybe Byron Murphy's worst play of the night, which is very unfortunate. But it's like the Mike Williams catch, not catch that occurs at the, where we don't have enough camera angles to determine if it's really like that's not a Byron Murphy play, right? So yeah, I think that like for the most part, like I'm not going to say 80% of the time or anything like that, but for the most part, the blitzes were doing what they needed to do, and the Vikings were forcing them. Like, it wasn't a sack, but it was a 3-yard play. You'll take that, right? Like, I don't have an issue with that. So most of the blitzes were working, even if they weren't sacks, right? They just forced the Chargers into these awkward, bad throws. They just turned in some really high level, individual plays that turned huge. Like, look, okay, so yeah, 215 yards. That's pretty bad. He averaged like less than 10 yards a catch. Like, that's not a bad place to force a top. What was it, like 11.9? It was 18 for 250. So yeah, it was almost like 10 yards a target. It was like 125 yarder, right? That sucks. That was a great play, right? But a lot of those catches were not that great. Like, I know that he set the record for like 15 plus yard catches or whatever. I know that that's something that the coaches, but like most of the catches were not that meaningful. I'm not saying that Keenan Allen secretly had a bad game. He had a phenomenal game, right? The Chargers definitely did a great job against the Vikings blitz. My point is more, it's not a question of whether or not the blitz necessarily went home the entire time. It's that most of the time the blitz did its job. The situations where the blitz did not do its job were catastrophic, right? But most of the time the blitz did its job. I don't think 80% is a reasonable blitz percentage, but I don't think that the Vikings have a bad scheme. I think it's just, like Luke said, you just got to play
bad
not
personnel.
even that much better. Yeah, it's not even that much better, but you do got
the Dean Lowry of it all.
Yeah, and two to that point, like, but that's just
Harrison Phillips had a great game, by the way.
Yeah,
he's had a lot of great games.
But that's just the definition of a blitz, though, right? Like, when it doesn't get home, when it doesn't do its job, it's usually catastrophic. Yeah. It's a chunk play, no matter what.
Just
at
where
minimum,
we live.
At minimum, it's a chunk
it just
play.
comes with the territory of being a team that blitzes
a
lot. There's one-on-ones, hard situations for your corners, which is
1.5% better. They would have the blitzes would have been amazing.
Yeah,
right. Which I think is feeding into like your Byron Murphy take, where it's like, yeah, okay, he lost a lot, but it's maybe not concerning because he's on an island all the time.
Right. Yeah.
Like, that's really hard to do. And if the blitz gets picked up, corner on an island is just not going to be able to cover for that long. So if Justin Herbert gets time in the pocket, you're just going to find somebody. And going in, there were just always going to be games like this where they figure it out and then they find the counter and they put up 400 yards through the air. They're just, it's part of it. And then there are going to be games where the offense totally crumbles and falls apart and they score 7 points and we're going, look at Brian Flores, what a genius. The volatility just kind of comes with the territory. And I think that's the best bet you have when you have people like Dean Lowry on your starting lineup, just kind of eating up a roster spot.
I just find it interesting that they chose to double down against Herbert, and he's been a top 10 QB.
He's been good against
by passer rating against pressure in his career. I just find it interesting that they chose to go the extra length from 50% to 80% in this particular matchup against a guy with elusiveness, with a rocket who absolutely can pick you apart. And he did.
It was kind of like damned if you do, damned if you don't, though, too. There's like 9 minutes left in the third quarter. It's 3rd and 17. Don't quote me on those specifics. But
nasty.
You know what I'm talking about? The one time they don't actually blitz, they send for, they show blitz, but they drop back. Herbert rolls all the way over to the left, buys himself time. I think it was Andre Carter was like the one guy crashing down on him, finally giving him some pressure. But yeah, he hits Keenan Allen right in between Jordan Hicks and Byron Murphy for 18 yards and a first down on 3rd and 17. Like, what am I supposed to do here? Like, I think it's more than okay to wake up today and be like, dude, Justin Herbert is an absolute stud. It was so fun watching that offense and Justin Jefferson, these two young guys in the NFL, play against each other yesterday. Okay, that one stung, but it's the body of work. Like, the blitz hasn't worked, not just yesterday. It didn't really work versus the Bucs or the Eagles. I think that's some of the frustration I'm hearing from some fans, like on Twitter and stuff, that it's like, it's not just we played Justin Herbert and they figured out a way to combat the blitz and the pressure. It's been all year we haven't gotten home.
Yeah, let's get a word in from FanDuel. We're going to talk about our FanDuel parlays in a little bit. I also want to reveal my top 10 regular season gut punch losses, and we'll see whether this Chargers game made the cut. But FanDuel has a wonderful promotion going on right now where you can bet $5 if you're a new customer and get $200 into your account in bonus bets, win or lose, guaranteed. And there are hundreds of ways to wager on the NFL at FanDuel. In fact, you can click more wagers on every NFL game, and there are dozens of ways per game to wager on that individual game. Really, the possibilities are endless. So get in the action at America's #1 sportsbook. Spreads, player props, over-unders, futures, alternate lines, alternate spreads, first touchdown scores. It's so much fun, and you can make the moment more at FanDuel.com/lockedon. Kick off the NFL season in style. We're already 3 weeks in, so join now while you still have a lot of time. FanDuel, an official partner of the National Football League. Appreciate everybody tuning in today, our everydayers. Thank you. Again, you can find our audio on the Locked On Vikings feed. We're also partnered with the SiriusXM app. Check out the SXM app, Locked On Sports Minnesota, for all of our shows. All right, parlays in a bit, but I've got my top 10 Vikings regular season gut punches. We used to do a show called Minnesota Sports Rank 'em. Luke and I, we're rolling that in now to this show, and we even have a produced open for it. This is exciting and very dramatic.
This is Minnesota Sports Rank 'em, part of Locked On Sports Minnesota, and it starts now.
Very Avengers.
Don't you guys just want to go to battle now?
Okay, we had the same. Yeah, it's like,
damn.
Yeah.
No, now it just makes me not want to watch movies anymore. What are you talking about?
This was a depressing exercise because I went through 25 years of Vikings football, and I do not even think that yesterday's game qualifies as a top 10 gut punch.
Yeah, there's no way.
Loss.
Yeah, no shot.
Now, this is my top 10. This goes back to 98, regular season only. Number one, I think, and if you're watching on YouTube, you can see it on the screen. Number one is Nate Poole back of the end zone against the Cardinals. Number two, Antonio Freeman in overtime.
Oh,
at
yeah.
Lambeau.
Oh, that's what Freeman is. I was like, you can't tell me that the Josh Freeman game against the Giants is a gut. That's not a gut punch.
No, that's
was
funny.
perfect,
That one is
yeah.
enjoyable to relive because of how
Yeah.
funny it is.
Number three is in the Favre season, climbing back at Soldier Field with a chance at the 1 seed And they staged like a 20-point comeback, like 17-point comeback, only to lose in overtime on a Peterson fumble and a Devin Aromashadu touchdown.
Like
that's my
bomb,
number 3.
if I remember right.
Say again.
Wasn't it like a bomb touchdown?
Yeah, it was like Peterson fumble, Bears get the ball, first play bomb, game over. Cutler on a play action. Number 4, and this might be, I might actually, in retrospect, switch this a little lower, but Teddy Bridgewater strip sacked at Arizona when you had nobody playing on defense.
With Matt Khalil as,
You had nobody on defense. You were in a game against one of the NFC's best teams, and Teddy Bridgewater got strip sacked.
Was that the Thursday night game? Was that a
Thursday
Monday
night?
Prime time, right? Thursday.
Yeah.
Yep. But like they were so close to setting it because they just needed a field goal, right? And they were just inside a field goal range, and Matt Khalil gives up the pressure, leads to a strip sack. I remember that. Yeah.
We watched that together at Joe Sensor's, Arif.
Oh, yeah.
That was fun, except the result. Number 5, two-parter, both games against Green Bay in 2004, where they lost dueling 34-31 walk-offs, courtesy of Ryan Longwell. Those sucked.
But
one of them was on
they beat him in the wild card, though.
Yeah, beat him in the wild card game.
There's an interesting question about, like, does that still hurt because we know what happened eventually? And I guess you have to kind of take each thing as its own thing, huh?
You do have to account for, I think, what the team did, because there are bad losses in lost seasons that just don't hit the same, right? And that's part of why yesterday's does not make the top 10, because you're 0-3. Like, if we look back on this season and they go 5-12, we're not really going to care what happened in week 3. I'll complete the list here. Number 6, who remembers blowing a 15-0 lead in the home opener to Peyton Manning?
I don't remember that.
2004?
2007 or 8. No, I'm sorry, 8.
2008.
Yeah.
Oh, was that when they kicked like
T-Jack settled for 5 field goals?
Yes.
5 field goals, yeah.
I was at that
Defense
game.
put on a show, and they lost a fourth quarter 15-0 lead.
I was at that game with my dad. We just looked at each other on the last drive. We're like, it's Peyton Manning, dude. Like, we already know what's going to happen. It's scripted. We already know. It's scripted.
It's number 7, 2020, no fans in the stands, Sunday Night Football at Seattle. The Madison decision on 4th and 1. Wilson drives for the win. Cam Dantzler, what are you doing?
They had like a 2-score lead in that game too at some point, like a
13-0, I think.
Yeah, they were up big, then lost it, then came back, and then choked. 2013 week 2, the Bears beat them basically at the buzzer in a game where I think you had a Patterson kickoff return and a Robinson scoop and score, like 31-30. Awesome game. Remember that one?
I was at that game in Soldier.
Man.
Dang, Luke's been to a lot of week 2 games.
Yep. Patterson took the opening kickoff to the house. It was electric. Yeah, that was a fun, wild back and forth game. Cutler, 6-7 seconds left. Hit the tight end. Martellus Bennett. Yep.
Yeah, that.
Which secretly being garbed up and head to toe in Viking stuff in Soldier, I was secretly kind of glad they won, because I don't know if I would have got out of there alive. That place was hostile, man, especially up in the nosebleeds. Not a lot of security going on. It was hostile.
Yeah. Bears were kind of an exciting offense at that point. That was the Alshon Jeffrey era.
That's right.
19 Green Bay climbing back from 21-0 down. 21-16, and then Cousins throws one of the worst interceptions you'll ever see to lose.
The Kevin King interception?
The Kevin King, I believe. Yeah. We did that.
Oh,
yeah, we did. Yeah.
Got Yankee.
Yeah, that was awful. And then all the way back to 1999 at Kansas City, when Randy Moss housed the punt return to tie the game, only to let the Chiefs go and walk it off on a field goal. And that's, again, a game that mattered a lot. Like, some of these late season losses really hit when they hurt your playoff chances. Some of these were early in seasons that kind of like signaled what was to come. But I don't think yesterday's game qualifies. Would anyone like to fight me on that?
So I think if we're only talking about close games, this is a really good top 10. But I do think that the game where the Vikings were favored by like 18 points against the Bills, against the Josh Allen Bills way back right before Everson Griffin, turned out, that to me qualifies as a gut punch, even though like they lost big and early, right? But to me, that's still a gut punch because the Vikings were
the Bills were not the Bills as we know yet. The Bills were still those really bad Bills. Josh Allen.
They won like 4 games that year.
And also, that Bills roster was one of the worst rosters I've ever seen. It was year. If you remember that Josh Allen was bad that year, you take a look at that roster. The only good player on offense they had was like Deion Dawkins, right? That's it. They didn't have any good receivers aside from Dawkins. They didn't really have any good offensive linemen. They didn't have good running backs. They had Josh Allen, right? Because before they traded for Diggs, it was a bad roster, and the defense was almost as bad as that offense, just in terms of a roster.
They had a player retire at halftime the week before.
Insult to injury.
I'm sick of this.
Yeah, Josh Allen put Anthony Barr on the highlight reel multiple times.
Yeah.
It still pops up once or twice a year. I still see that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So to me, that's a bigger gut punch than half of the ones on that list, even though it wasn't like a close game or a loss or anything like that. Also, we got to remember that 2011 season with McNabb and Ponder had 4 blown leads of double digits, which I think is the most of any individual Viking season. I know 2014 has a number of them. I know 1981 has a number of them. But like, oh God, like in recent history.
2021 alone, I didn't put any of those on the list, and they had
the
at
Cardinals
Cincinnati, at Arizona, the Joseph miss, at Detroit, last play of the game, and those are just the 3 worst of the season. They had like 3 others.
Yeah, and
like
the Cincinnati
Baltimore.
one opened the season, right? If I'm remembering.
They opened the season with blown lead, overtime loss, blown lead, miss kick loss.
How about the week? I think they were 0-2. The week 3 game versus the Browns, and
Josh Gordon went off.
Josh Gordon went off. They had a fake field goal go for a touchdown. Norv Turner was just loving life back then for the Browns. That was a gut punch.
Also, I think this is also in 2011, and I don't think it's on their list of like biggest blown leads, but the one against the Tim Tebow Broncos, like because that went into overtime and.
They blew a bigger lead against Detroit that same year, earlier in the year, and lost to
they lost that one in overtime as well. Yeah. Well, I mean, that was a year where they kept on they kept on grabbing these big first quarter leads and then just blowing them. And it took like a 28-0 lead against the Cardinals for them to manage to build a lead large enough not to blow it. I remember that year. Yeah, that was crazy. And everyone watching was like, is 28-0 enough? Is that enough? The first quarter was 28-0, and Viking fans were like, boy, this one's tight.
I don't know, man. We might be sweating this one out.
This one's tight. Yeah. But what was it, like a 26 or 23-point lead against the Lions? They rally back to force overtime and then win in overtime. And you're just like, oh, man, I cannot believe we gave the Lions optimism.
Wait a minute. How about the Ravens game? The classic the last 4 minutes?
To me, that one's not a gut punch. I mean, that one's a close game.
I forgot about that.
Right, that's not a gut punch to me because it was pure entertainment. They shouldn't have gotten back as many times as they did, so it was like house money by the time they lost. At least to me, right? I was just like, wow, Patterson was going to throw the ball and he scrambles for like 60-odd yards in the snow. This rules. More of this. Was that 2013?
Yeah,
that was
people
awesome.
Mostly love reminiscing. Like we lost some cares. That was awesome.
Yeah. So like to me that was like a gut punch. It was like 5 lead changes in the fourth quarter in the snow, but it's just like.
That was more entertaining than gut punch for sure. No, I agree.
It didn't
with you.
mean a lot because they were really bad.
That's true too. Yeah, it did mean a lot.
It was a lost season, anyways, for sure.
Can I throw one out?
Just thinking of the Ravens, just real quick. Sam mentioned that 0-1 season where they started loss against the Bengals, the missed Greg Joseph kick at Arizona. They also lost to the Ravens, I think it was week 6, week 7 in overtime as well, 34-31. That was a fun game as well. Not a gut punch, but it just got me thinking about the Ravens loss.
Lost a 14-point lead in that game too.
That's right.
Braun?
Can I throw out a vintage one from before your cutoff?
Yes.
How about 1995?
Bengals?
Patriots?
No.
Rough that we came up with 2 different ones, and that wasn't either of the ones we came up with.
I might have the year
Love
wrong.
the Denny era. That was an 8-8 year. The only, outside of the year he got fired, the only Denny year where they didn't make the playoffs. And it came down to week 16 against San Francisco. They fall down 27-10. They fall into a 17-point hole, and they battle all the way back, tying the game up in the third quarter. And then the 49ers kick a field goal. The 49ers score a touchdown. They fall behind again. And the Vikings are again trying to make a comeback. They kick a field goal, bring it to within 1 score. The 49ers get get the ball back and then go on a 17-play drive to kill the clock, thwarting the comeback effort and eliminating the Vikings.
What are we talking?
So,
Steve Young, Jerry Rice?
It was a bunch of incomplete passes, which I'm not sure I entirely understand. But it eventually went into just running and the Vikings taking timeouts and getting a whole bunch of first downs.
So the one I wanted to bring up was the Bengals one from 1995. The Vikings go out to a 24-3 lead. So they had a 21-point lead at halftime, right? And then they don't score another point, right? So in the third quarter, they end up scoring 2 touchdowns, 14 points. Eric Bieniemy is carrying the ball. You know,
hilarious.
There you go.
Yeah. So it's 24-17 at the top of the fourth quarter. And then Jeff Blake leads 2 comeback drives. One of them and remember, this is 1995. He sets up a 51-yard field goal attempt. No chance. In 1995, no chance.
That's like 61 now.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Jeff
Of course,
Blake
it goes
has
against the Vikings.
Jeff Blake finished. So this is like Warren Moon, right? This is the Warren Moon Vikings. Warren Moon finishes with an astounding passer rating of 96.5. Because again, 1995, it's a killer passer rating.
Yeah.
Jeff Blake finishes with a 69.9 nice passer rating in a comeback win against the Vikings, where the final drive is, like I said, is this 51-yard field goal that only gets set up because the Vikings just cannot get out of their way, and they keep throwing the ball with a lead at the end and stopping the clock. It's first and 9.
Do you guys realize between Arif's game and then Luke's game that happened in back-to-back weeks? Those were the final 2 games, week 16 and 17.
Fall to 8-8.
Yeah.
Wow.
Let me give you and this is the one I was thinking of, 94.
By the way, that was a 9-minute drive to end the game for the Bengals to set up a 51. How do you
Oh my gosh, the 9-minute drill.
Insane.
Yeah,
those Denny defenses were special.
Yeah, they drove with 30 they drove 60 yards in 9 minutes.
Not bad.
How?
Not bad.
I'll try to top it with this Patriots game. Vikings lead 20-0.
Wait, is this 95?
This is 94.
Okay.
Vikings up 20-0 at Foxborough against Parcells and Bledsoe. Sound familiar? They don't score again. Patriots rattle off 26 in a row to win in overtime. Drew Bledsoe, 45 of 70, 426, 3 touchdowns.
What? 70 in 1994?
70?
What? They had, I got the box score pulled up. They had 12 rushes that game. 2 of them were from Bledsoe, so they had 10 real runs that game. That's insane, man. Unbelievable. Fun.
Okay, I just realized the Vikings ran a 1-minute 13-play drive at the end of that Bengals game. 1 minute, 13 plays.
Fascinating.
How?
Was this Bob Schnelker?
How?
Was this Schnelker's fault?
This would have been after Schnelker.
It was after Schnelker. Yeah.
This was
Billick?
Billick, probably, yeah.
Yeah, that would make
95?
sense. Yeah.
95.
But yeah, I just like
Billick
how?
and Dungy.
Well, because they were addicted to throwing the ball. They had Warren Moon. They were addicted to throwing the ball. They also had like 2 penalties that put them back.
That's got to be penalties and incomplete passes.
Okay, yeah,
and
I
the
see
defense
two timeouts.
gives them a fresh
it's a lot
set,
of incomplete passes. There's 2 penalties that first down, second down, first down, second down, first down, second down, first down penalty, first down penalty. So it's like first and 20, and so they have to throw it, and they miss a line, so they call their own timeout.
Is there
Bengals
anything
called
better
the
than
timeout.
reminiscing about
No, the
30-year-old
Vikings
football?
called a timeout because they misaligned.
I got to pull up. I see both Bengals and the Vikings.
The Bengals also called a timeout, but the Vikings
yes.
calling a timeout on their kill the clock
Correct.
drive
Yeah.
is astounding.
In like 20 years, there's going to be a talk cast. I don't know what they'll call them in 20 years about this Chargers game going, okay, you're never going to believe this. 2 different times there was a tip, and they both ended up in the hands of a Charger.
Record scratch.
Hey,
You're
third time
wondering
it
how
ended
we
up
got
in the
here.
hands of Jordan Addison. He just, didn't.
Wow.
Why did 31 seconds go off the clock between that first down conversion and then the interception?
Yeah. The internet will be way more regulated. It'll be really hard to find replays.
Oh, good. Yeah.
You'll have to pay to like watch old highlights on like the NFL YouTube account.
You have to pay like per YouTube video.
So who's going to get the subscription and then borrow us their
share the
password?
password? They'll have.
Oh no, they'll be very good
really
at
good
cracking
protections
down on
against
password
that.
sharing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Netflix is leading the way.
Starting the trend.
Yeah.
Let's circle back to the here and now, as fun as this is, and we'll entertain the Cousins trade talk. People are talking about it. Might be nonsense, but we will indulge. After I just remind folks to subscribe here at Locked On Sports Minnesota. Find us free and available wherever you get your podcast. Check us out on Amazon Fire, Roku, Sirius XM app, and soon coming to the News On app, a 24/7 live stream. Very, very exciting news here at Locked On Sports Minnesota. All right. Kirk Cousins to the Jets. Everybody's floating it. I mean, the Jets are pitiful, miserable, awful. I did something really dumb, and I bet on them in our parlay to score 17 points. What was I thinking?
Against Belichick?
Yeah, that was
defense
bad.
was. I get it. Like you'd think, 17 can't be that.
I know, tempting. I know, it's so tempting. 70 points. Come on.
That was
one
bad.
Mac Jones oopsie doodle, and you got 7 out of it.
Defensive touchdown, special team, whatever.
Let's ignore the finances of it. Let's just focus on this question. Would Kirk Cousins waive the no trade clause? Because it starts and stops there. So if a trade is in place, and let's fast forward a couple more weeks, let's say the Jets have to feel like they have a chance too, right? Like if they're 1-5, they're probably not climbing out of that. So if they're 2-3 and the Vikings are 0-5 and trade is on the table, Luke, is Cousins green lighting that trade?
You know, first of all, I think about this Jets Aaron Rodgers trade, and now that pick is going to go from a first to a second, but I don't think they can trade that first round pick yet in the middle of the season.
I don't think they're allowed to, no.
Yeah, I don't think they're allowed to.
I don't think they can trade either. So you can't get their first.
So those are
second.
frozen.
You have to find a different. Yeah.
I mean, dude, Cousins, I mean, what's the pace at? It's 6,000 yards, 51 touchdowns. Yeah, I know it's a small sample size, but like, why the heck would he want out of this, man? I go start all over with a new system, new playbook in the middle of the season with far less talent and weapons. No chance, man. 1% chance, maybe. I know we're 0-3 and the stats and all the history says like we're toast. And they might be, who knows? I don't know. But there's 17 games now. So you get that extra game. That means I think it's like 81 or 82% of their schedule still remaining. That's like the Twins giving up in early May because they went 3-18 their first 3 weeks. You know what I mean? I think there's just too much football left for Kirk or anyone to like bail out and jump ship. Not to mention, he's got the best weapons. I mean, arguably, right? He's got the best passing weapons in the league. So I say no chance he greenlight any type of trade, whether it's the Jets or anybody.
Well, so, I mean, I think the Jets in particular, right? Because what are the odds that he gets a long-term deal with the Jets? 0. Right. Aaron Rodgers is there. Why would he, like, you wouldn't sign it? I think any place that you float for Kirk Cousins being traded to, there needs to be some viability for a long-term extension, a long-term fully guaranteed extension, because it's Cousins, right? So that's ground floor. That's where you have to start. And I don't think that that's happening. But also, I don't think the Vikings are doing it, right? Like, they're 0-3. They still have a chance to make the playoffs. Like, no matter what you say about, how pathetic you think this team is, and maybe you're right, or how, impossible it is to make the playoffs from 0-3, and maybe you're right. That's not how the ownership thinks, and that's not how the coaching staff thinks. Like, whether or not we're correct about how hopeless things are about the Vikings, and honestly, I still think they've got a shot to make the playoffs. I think they're much better than an 0-3 team typically is, which is obviously the swan song you hear from every podcast of an 0-3 team. But, I think there's some pretty good underlying numbers that suggest as much, at least. Whether or not that's true or false, the Vikings don't act like it's true. The Vikings have historically, and especially under the Wilfs, made sure that they are always competitive, that there's always an attempt to make the playoffs, to always be in the mix. And right now, even at 0-3, there's a possibility they can win the division. There's a possibility that they're in the mix, right? I don't think that they're willing to give it up. And I think that you'd have to get basically to the trade deadline before they're mathematically eliminated, before there's a possibility that they're mathematically eliminated. And even then, I don't know that they would trade anybody, but also by then the Jets will have had to have made their move, right? So I just don't think from a Cousins perspective that he'd want to do it because there's no possibility of an extension. From a Vikings perspective that they'd want to do it, or I don't think it even makes sense, right? Like even if both Cousins and I think even if both Cousins and the Vikings were being irrational, I don't think they would be in this situation. You got to compete. You got to try.
Yeah.
And
There's so many
go ahead. Go ahead.
There's so many deadbolts on this that prevent it from ever happening. There's the first and second round pick for the Jets being frozen, which means you have to either settle for 2025 picks or you have to say, yeah, we'll do it for a third. And it's like, now you're not getting your value. There is what Arif just said about Kirk Cousins, probably not wanting to do that, not wanting to go to a place where he's not going to be the long-term guy, not wanting to just kind of like uproot everything in the season to go play for a different bad team.
And learn a system. If he had played with Nathaniel Hackett before, like maybe not really, but like that improves the odds.
Tyler Conklin.
State chemistry. We're coming.
It's crazy.
Like, there's just so much that prevents
Cook.
this from ever being a reasonable idea. Not to mention the money of it all. So here, let me do this. Let me pitch you a different one that feels like it doesn't have a lot of the same issues.
Sure. Just real quick, I want to point out there's not a ton of places where you can say, "Hey, I'm going to Garrett Wilson," and that's a pretty big downgrade.
Right.
Right.
He's a stud. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing is, like Arif was getting at, like maybe you don't think they have a chance to make the playoffs anymore, or maybe a better way to put it is you think their chances to make the playoffs are too small to take seriously. Sure, whatever, probabilistic analysis, but they have an opportunity to come back. It maybe their chances are bad, but it's an opportunity, and they're not going to squander an opportunity. That's just not how people in NFL organizations are wired. You
tend to be wired.
Yeah, there's Stephen Ross's sometimes. That litigation is pending.
By the way, can you imagine asking a Brian Flores coach?
That's what I'm saying. Like,
my God,
Jesus,
too soon.
He'll quit. Like, he'll just leave and
burn the whole org. And this time he'll keep all the texts.
Oh yeah,
you don't have
it's in the cloud, man. It's in the cloud.
Like, I think it's really easy for us to kind of say, nobody's going to predict that the Vikings will make the playoffs, right? Nobody's going to say, I think that they will, but they could. They could win the next 3 games. Why not, right? Underdogs win. Sure. You could win the next 3 games and then suddenly, upset the Chiefs. Do it,
That's all it would take.
Go be 3-3.
Truly. Yeah. Win.
The path is there.
Dude, schedule
it is very easy to figure out what the path is.
Yeah.
The
after the
Chiefs never had an undefeated season. They're not invincible.
We're coming. Yeah.
You're not the Bears.
After the Chiefs and the Niners, and plus you got Carolina and obviously Chicago in between there, it's pretty soft, man. I mean, Green Bay, Atlanta, New Orleans, Denver, Chicago again, Las Vegas, and then you end with those 3 division games. They haven't played 1 division game yet. So
it's super atypical for a team, unless you're like Arizona and you went into the season going, this one's lost. It's super, super atypical for anybody but the bottom 2 teams in the league to start acting like fire sale mode unless they're already mathematically eliminated and they're 0-7. It's a way different culture than if you say the NBA. In the NBA trade deadline, you kind of make this determination about your season, and we could maybe push and maybe we could get into a play-in and not win it, or you know what, let's just sell off our things and try to get draft picks. And the NFL, there's a lot of market reasons why it just doesn't work the same way. But it's also, there's just not as many opportunities in the NFL. Every season is an opportunity. As a head coach, what do you get on average? 3 of them? Yeah, you're going to piss one of them away because it started a little bit boo-hooey? Get out of here.
Boo-hooey.
Braun is just full of amazing rants the last 2 days. I do think this is maybe a conversation.
I'm sick of the quitters. Get out of here, quitters and losers.
I think a Daniil trade would be on the table. That's all I was going to add.
You'd have to be way worse than now. You'd have to lose the next 4 or 5, and then we'll talk about it.
Yeah, and if you're trading Daniil, then is everybody on the table?
Yeah.
This is a flawed team for
Trade
sure,
JJ.
far from perfect. But like every team in the NFL is flawed. You got salary cap, injuries, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think you throw away a season where you got JJ, Hunter, Darrisaw, Brian O'Neill, Cousins, Hawkinson, all that stuff in their prime, no less. Plus, there's help coming too, right? Davenport sounds like he may be coming back next week. Dalton Reisner, Cam Akers, like nobody's given up yet. I'll tell you that. Not inside that building.
When you say there's help coming and then you list those three names, I actually feel worse than when before the sentence.
Well, you don't.
I'm not sure all three of those guys are going to start.
I
Cavalry?
think,
I'm like pretty sure all three won't.
well, Marcus will.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we got one for sure, one 50-50, and one like I don't know.
I'm not confident Cam Akers is starting.
0%.
There's
No shot.
0%.
Yeah, but yeah, maybe Dalton. I still don't know if he'll do it this week. Like, I think it's still aggressive to give it 2 weeks, right? Like maybe by week was it 5? No, 6. Maybe by week 6. But like,
Really, you think
God.
it'll take that long? What do
It's
you guys say?
weird.
What do you two think?
Being an
I
offensive
think he'll
lineman
start
is
next
weird.
week.
I think it's sooner.
I think you can do it next week, honestly.
Okay,
It
yeah,
can't be worse, man.
honestly.
and everybody
he's
agrees
worked with
it's
Chris
over
Cooper.
Ingram, right? Yeah,
It's zone running. Like he knows that kind of framework well-ish enough. I think it was
hey,
a
we
lot
finally
to
got
get
grades.
in on like a Tuesday and play on a Sunday, but guys have done that.
It's true.
Didn't Jake Long do that at least some reps?
And he played really well
And he
until
played good, didn't he?
Yeah,
until he Jake Longed it. Yeah.
yeah.
This is a nice little tradition where the PFF grades drop at about 11:30 a.m.
Yeah,
So
under pressure only 26.5% of the time. I disagree with that. I think he's under pressure more often and just got out of it. But
guess who was under
That's what
pressure
happens.
20 times? Kirk Cousins
yeah, oh my gosh.
hit 7 more, which is not the same number ESPN had. So I don't know how it all gets calculated because they had 13.
I think they have different timing standards because I think that'll come down to at what point did you hold the ball like long enough where it counts as you didn't get pressured.
Yeah, they have 18 dropbacks under pressure, 32.7% dropback. That doesn't sound right. It sounds like he's
And I
closer to
think
40.
ESPN just does like, did you get a yard away from the QB, where PFF doesn't hold like hard
these
and fast. to that.
PFF pressure numbers are very weird to me for this game.
Ed Ingram, the third
Ed Ingram,
highest
both
PFF
six.
player on offense.
But 6 pressures allowed, and his pass
God.
blocking grade
God,
was
yeah.
abysmal.
Oh yeah, his
Oliver,
run
JJ,
blocking grade is
Ingram,
phenomenal,
Ezra.
which I guess.
Yeah.
I actually on some of the successful runs in the first quarter, I thought he was losing, and Madison got out of his way. So that's just kind of interesting. I didn't really pay much attention to his run blocking after that, but like that is an interesting set of grades for sure.
Byron Murphy, your MVP, gives up 10 of 14 for 185, 15 yards, average depth of target, which seems kind of downfield, and a 137 passer rating.
41.1 PFF grade.
Darrisaw, Osborne, Hawkinson,
Not great.
bottom 3 on offense.
Okay, so I actually thought Brian O'Neill had a very bad game, and nobody wants to talk about it because we all love our tackles. I'm very, I don't know if glad, but I feel justified in that he did not get a very good grade on this game, but it wasn't as bad as I thought.
Mm-hmm.
Ivan Pace
Darrisaw.
Jr. balls out yet again.
Yeah, he's very good, but you can't ask him to do everything.
Yeah, we learned that against Philly.
Yeah.
Apparently, when you have him one-on-one a guard and try to hold his spot, that doesn't go great.
So Cleveland was good at pass blocking. Schlotman was good at pass blocking. Darrisaw was good at pass blocking, but not run blocking, which is why he ends up with the lowest grade out of all the offensive linemen, which is interesting. And then Brian O'Neill was okay at both and ends up with a poor grade. Ed Ingram is the only one with a substantially negative pass blocking grade, and he ends up with the second highest overall grade.
They've always had that where like their run block grades seem to drive it way more than their pass
Yeah,
block
right.
grades, which
so
is very
weird.
funny coming from PFF.
Right.
Yeah, it's so weird. But yeah, Ed Ingram's pass block grade is catastrophically bad. So is notably Ty Chandler's, which I think explains a lot, right? Like he's not someone you can trust in pass protection.
He had
And
two
that's
pass
like
block reps.
a
He
thing
must have
about
missed
Cam
one.
Akers is that he's good at pass pro.
Yeah, and I remember
that's,
I
like,
was,
part
I
of
was
his
reading
reputation.
this thread. First of all, the thread mentioned that the Vikings were in a soft zone the entire time, which is they were just in off covers. That's not what that is. So no, they were not in a soft zone.
Oh.
But second, they mentioned that Ty Chandler was really good at pass protection, and I was like, what
Wait,
in the world are you talking about? Anyway, turns out he's bad at it.
and we know Kenne's not very good at it. Just the whole passing situation as well, right?
Yeah, the whole deal.
The whole thing.
And getting on the field. But yeah.
Myles Gaskin wishes he was back in Miami. Holy cow. 70 points.
He could have got in that game.
He could have had 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, he
They
could
could have suited him up at halftime and said,
There's one of 2 games in NFL history where 2 running backs had 4 touchdowns from the same team.
The greatest part about that entire game wasn't what actually happened on the field, but what happened after, when Chris Thomason poked the bear with Sean Payton and asked him, hey, how do you feel about this historic loss?
Well, he didn't.
Sean
He didn't
Payton got a little feisty.
He did the Chris Thomason thing where he sets up all of the facts of the question before he asked the question, and Sean Payton had no time for it. He's like, hey,
what's the
70
question?
points.
What's the question?
70 points. I'm aware.
Already answered.
Second most points given up in NFL history. I know. So 70 points. What's the question?
I just answered it.
How do you feel about? I already told you how I feel.
So great,
I've
dude.
seen
It's
a bunch
only
of
week
people-
3, man. It's only going to get better.
I've seen a bunch of people be like, "Man, I wish Thomason was in the locker room or in the press conference after this Vikings game, or I wish he was there to ask McDaniels about kicking that field goal." It's like, no, he's exactly where he needed to be.
No, this is why he
that
left.
is
is
what
because,
needed Thomason.
Yeah, his mark was Mike Zimmer, and Mike Zimmer is not around anymore. Now there's a patient coach who's not going to snap. He needed to find.
And Mike Zimmer has told Sean Payton about this reporter that's coming to Denver.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Let's enjoy this from afar. Because Peyton is, after reading that feature on him that Wickersham did, I just find him to be such a compelling character.
Sean Payton?
Even more. Yeah. Parlays via FanDuel. We have our first winner, and his name is Luke Braun. Chiefs -12.5. Jefferson TD hits at +260, $100. Puts him in
This is
first
my
place.
Jefferson Rager moment.
Well done.
Arif could have had it.
Well done.
Yep. Well done. Arif, you can win tonight with Eagles -4.5 and a Hurts TD. Inman, you missed on the Olave touchdown anytime.
10
And I
catches.
missed-
He's got like 30 catches this year. Get in the end zone, man.
Wait, he didn't get in the end zone?
Yeah.
Told me. I nailed my Patriots -2.5. That was a breeze. No problem.
He had
Win
this
by 5.
astounding one-arm catch,
Yeah.
like way out ahead of him. He extends it out, right? Grabs it, walks out of bounds to the 2.
You're killing me.
Did Keenan Allen score yesterday?
I don't think so.
Would a passing touchdown constitute an anytime touchdown?
Nope.
Okay.
No.
Mm-mm.
Because Ron Johnson had a 5-leg parlay that hinged on, I think he needed a Keenan Allen touchdown.
No. And he hit the other 4?
I think he did.
Oh, that's dirty. 18 catches.
Nasty.
Oh, can't get in the end zone. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll go back and check, but it was for sure Herbert and Cousins 300 yards plus each, Jefferson 110, Jefferson TD, I think, and Allen TD.
Yeah, no touchdown.
Yeah.
What a crazy game. Fun game.
That's rough. That was crazy. And we didn't even talk about Brandon Staley, not only the 4th and 1, but not calling his timeouts. I thought during the whole sequence that we discussed ad nauseum.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Arguably the Vikings should have been bailed out from that by Los Angeles doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
Wow,
and saving
the
themselves
process of
time.
that is insane because you're trusting your defense, and it's like the worst passing defense in the league, and you're just trusting them.
And
I guess-
you're like,
Well,
your
it worked
offense-
2 other
well,
times earlier in the red zone.
Your
Got a
offense has
tip drill
been,
interception. He saw it coming.
but your offense has been moving the ball at will. Like you feel good if you give them 30 seconds that you're going to get into field goal range, and they would not have left themselves that opportunity. So Staley,
And you're not going to
avoids
miss
the
a field goal
public
in US Bank
logging.
Stadium.
Right.
You got to know about that.
Yeah.
Right. You can't be a Chargers
Kicker, the
quarterback
kicker.
or a Chargers coach and not intimately know all the curses.
Yeah, poor preparation on Staley's part. Arif, did you what'd you think of I haven't seen any of the bots tweeting out what the the play was for Staley on the 4th and 1. But what did you think of that move?
The bot said go for it.
Makes
That
sense.
was crazy to me. The bot said go for it. So, like, the thing, of course, is that if you go for it and succeed, you win the game. If you don't go for it, you still have an opportunity to prevent the Vikings touchdown, right? Like, that's basically the reasoning behind it, right? Is that whatever the odds are of going for it, those are the winning odds plus whatever odds the Vikings don't score. Personally, despite and it was a strong go for it from the bots. Personally, I would have ignored the bot in that situation. And you know me, I'm an Android, right?
Big
I love
bot
these
guy.
numbers. Yeah,
Big bot guy.
I would have punted. But yeah, like I get it, and I'm a little bit more sympathetic to it, but it's just like,
hey,
oh boy.
what the bots say? What the bots say on KOC's 4th and 6? The cojones to go for that.
Bot said go for it.
Okay.
Which also I wouldn't say surprised me, but I don't think it was as strong a go for it as the 4th and 1.
I get it for sure. I
could've
think
tried
kind of for the same
54.
reason. I don't want that defense on the field with the game on the line, and I will absolutely try to seize an opportunity to prevent that.
Yeah.
If I'm punting it away, I don't think that field position goes very far because my passing defense sucks.
I asked Sam and Luke their feelings on this yesterday on the postcast, but Arif, what was your emotions when KJ Osborne dove into the end zone?
That was so
and
cool,
you saw
man.
that ball explode up into the air and like into the stands where you're like, no way.
That was
It's fine, right? No.
Like it was fine.
It's super sick now, but there's a moment where you're like,
A half a second.
Yeah, I get it. But like, man, he needed that.
yeah.
He needed
Yeah, I mean, this is a Thursday conversation, but I mean, Addison continues to outshine as a receiver. I see the benefits
Osborne
of the
was
run blocking.
A killer run blocker.
The
Yeah,
run
he was.
blocking
Yeah.
is outstanding.
He was.
That bubble
Yeah.
screen they did behind Jordan Addison as a blocker, I think we got maybe Gages get more reps.
Yeah.
I do feel like really good about my preseason prediction that Osborne has more snaps and Addison has more yards. I feel
Oh, that's right on
astoundingly
track
good with
right
that
now.
one. Yeah.
Oh, you're nailing that. Yeah.
The man
That'll
can
be a
he
Thursday
block.
conversation for sure. We'll get Ron Johnson in the mix. We'll preview the Adam Thielen grudge match and maybe an Andy Dalton. Another week for Andy Dalton.
Oh, Jesus.
We can't
We
get
had
rid of this
that.
guy.
Luke had that in London last year with the double doink. That might be the Vikings' ticket to a victory. We'll talk about that next show on Thursday. Before then, Ron Johnson on Tuesday. Luke and I will have the mailbag with Reggie on Wednesday. So plenty more content to come here on Locked On Sports Minnesota. Thanks, Arif. Thanks, Luke Braun. Check out Locked On Vikings. Check out the Wide Left Substack and check out all of Luke Inman's work on the postcasts. Go back and watch yesterday's. It was heated. I'm Sam Ekstrom saying goodbye for today on the Minnesota Football Party. Hopefully better news next week.